I watched the bank manager's face turn pale as she read the documents my daughter had submitted. When she looked up at me, there was pity in her eyes, the kind you reserve for someone who doesn't understand what's happening to them. Mrs. Chen, I'm very sorry, but given the circumstances, we have no choice but to freeze all your accounts pending a competency evaluation. My daughter stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder in what anyone else would see as a comforting gesture. But I felt the pressure of her fingers, the subtle warning to stay quiet. It's for the best, Mom, she said softly. We just need to make sure you're protected. Protected. The word echoed in my mind as I realized that at 70 years old, I was about to lose control of everything I'd worked my entire life to build. And the person taking it all away was the daughter I'd sacrificed everything to raise. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Margaret Chen, and I spent 43 years as a high school mathematics teacher in Portland, Oregon. I retired 5 years ago with a decent pension, some savings, and the satisfaction of having helped hundreds of students discover that numbers could tell stories just as powerful as words. My husband Paul died 7 years ago from pancreatic cancer, leaving me alone in our modest 3-bedroom house in the Hawthorne district. We'd raised 2 children there. My son Christopher worked as a software engineer in Seattle and called every Sunday like clockwork. My daughter Veronica was a financial advisor who lived just 20 minutes away and visited frequently, always dressed in expensive suits that made me wonder how well her business was really doing. The trouble started on a Tuesday morning in March. I'd gone to the grocery store to pick up ingredients for my weekly meal prep when my debit card was declined at the checkout. The cashier, a young woman with purple hair and kind eyes, ran it 3 times before suggesting I try another card. I'm so sorry, she said quietly, aware of the line forming behind me. Do you have another payment method? I felt my face flush with embarrassment as I fumbled for my credit card. That worked, thankfully, and I hurried out of the store with my groceries, my mind racing. I checked my account balance just 2 days earlier and had over $8,000 in checking. There was no reason for the card to be declined unless something was very wrong. When I got home and logged into my online banking, my stomach dropped. My checking account showed a balance of $47. My savings account, which should have had nearly $60,000, was completely empty. The screen blurred as panic set in. Someone had stolen my money. All of it. I immediately called the bank's fraud department, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. After being transferred 3 times, I finally reached someone who could help. Mrs. Chen, let me pull up your account, the representative said. His name was Derek, and his voice had that practiced calm of someone who dealt with panicked customers all day. Can you verify your social security number and date of birth? I provided the information, then waited through what felt like an eternal silence while he reviewed my accounts. Mrs. Chen, I see several large transfers that were made from your accounts over the past week. Were you aware of these transactions? Transfers? What transfers? I wasn't aware of any transfers. According to our records, these were all authorized through your online banking portal. The largest was $58,000 transferred from savings to checking, then multiple transfers out to external accounts. That's impossible. I didn't authorize any transfers. I don't even know how to transfer money to external accounts. Derek's tone shifted slightly, becoming more formal. Mrs. Chen, I'm going to need to file a formal dispute on these transactions. However, I should let you know that the IP addresses for these transfers match previous logins from your account, and they were authenticated with your password. Someone must have stolen my password, I insisted. This is fraud. We'll investigate, but I have to be honest with you. Because these transfers were made using your correct login credentials, and from an IP address associated with your account history, it's going to be difficult to prove unauthorized access. In the meantime, I'm placing a hold on your accounts to prevent any further transactions. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my laptop screen, trying to understand how this could have happened. I was careful with my passwords. I never clicked on suspicious emails. I didn't even use public Wi-Fi. The doorbell rang, startling me out of my thoughts. It was Veronica, looking polished as always in a navy blazer and cream-colored pants. Mom, I saw your car in the driveway and thought I'd stop by. She kissed my cheek and walked into the kitchen, setting her designer purse on the counter. Is everything okay? You look upset. Someone stole my money, I said, hearing my voice crack. All of it. Veronica, I have $47 left in my checking account. Everything else is gone. Her eyes widened in what looked like genuine shock. What? How is that possible? I explained about the declined card, the empty accounts, the mysterious transfers. As I talked, Veronica pulled out her phone and started taking notes, her financial advisor mode kicking in. This is serious, Mom. Have you called the bank? Yes, they're investigating, but they said it's going to be hard to prove it wasn't me because someone used my password and logged in from a familiar IP address. Veronica frowned, scrolling through something on her phone. Mom, have you been having any problems with confusion lately? Any memory issues? The question seemed to come out of nowhere. What? No. Why would you ask that? She looked up from her phone, her expression carefully neutral. It's just that identity theft usually happens because someone either steals information or because the account holder gets confused and gives out their information without realizing it. I'm not confused, Veronica. Someone stole my money. Of course. I'm just trying to understand how this happened. She spent the next hour helping me change all my passwords and review my recent account activity. The transfers had been made to 3 different accounts, all at banks I'd never heard of. The names on the accounts were partially redacted in the transaction history, showing only first names and last initials. Sarah M. received $20,000. Michael K. received $15,000. Jennifer L. received $23,000. I don't know any of these people, I told Veronica. Who are they? Probably fake accounts the scammers set up, she said. This is pretty sophisticated, Mom. I think we need to file a police report in addition to the bank investigation. Over the next few days, things got worse. The bank's investigation was moving slowly, and in the meantime, my accounts remained frozen. My pension check was deposited, but I couldn't access it. My automatic bill payments started bouncing. I received a notice that my homeowner's insurance was being canceled for non-payment. Veronica helped me through it all, making phone calls on my behalf, setting up payment plans, even lending me money for groceries. I don't know what I'd do without you, I told her during one of her daily visits. That's what family is for, Mom, she said, squeezing my hand. We take care of each other. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Mrs. Chen, this is Patricia Holloway from Northwest Bank Security Department. I need to discuss some findings from our investigation into your account. My heart jumped. Did you find who did this? There was a pause. Mrs. Chen, our investigation has revealed that the transfers in question were made by someone with intimate knowledge of your accounts and personal information. The IP address traces back to your home network, and the timing of the transfers corresponds with periods when you were definitely home based on your other online activity. That doesn't make sense, I said. If someone was in my house using my computer, I would have known. That's not exactly what I'm saying. Our fraud analysis team believes these transfers may have been made by you, possibly during episodes of confusion or memory impairment. The words hit me like a physical blow. Are you saying you think I stole my own money and don't remember it? Mrs. Chen, we've seen cases where elderly customers make financial decisions they later don't recall. Given your age and the circumstances, we believe this may be what happened. The bank is recommending you undergo a cognitive evaluation before we can restore access to your accounts. I felt like the room was spinning. This is insane. I did not make those transfers. I'm not confused or impaired. Someone stole my money and now you're trying to say I'm mentally incompetent? I understand your frustration, but the bank has a responsibility to protect customers, even from themselves sometimes. We're going to need documentation from a medical professional clearing you for independent financial management before we can proceed. She gave me the name of a doctor the bank worked with for these evaluations. The appointment would cost $300, which I didn't have since all my money was frozen. After I hung up, I sat in stunned silence. In the span of a week, I'd gone from being a financially stable retiree to having no access to my own money and being labeled potentially incompetent. When Veronica arrived that evening, I told her about the bank's accusations. Her reaction surprised me. Mom, maybe they have a point. Excuse me? I'm not saying you're incompetent, but you are 70 years old. Memory issues are common at your age. Maybe you did make these transfers and just don't remember. Veronica, I taught advanced calculus for 4 decades. My mind is perfectly fine. She sat down beside me on the couch, taking my hand in both of hers. I know this is hard to hear, but I've noticed some things lately. You've been repeating yourself more often. Last week you forgot we had lunch plans. And Mrs. Patterson next door mentioned you seemed confused when she talked to you about the neighborhood association meeting. I pulled my hand away. Mrs. Patterson said that? When? See, you don't even remember the conversation. Mom, I love you and I'm worried about you. Maybe we should look into getting you evaluated not just for the bank but for your own peace of mind. The seed of doubt she planted grew over the following days. I started second-guessing myself, wondering if there was something wrong with me that I couldn't see. Had I been repeating myself? I didn't remember forgetting lunch plans with Veronica, but if I had forgotten, would I remember forgetting?
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
The circular logic made my head hurt. Veronica began bringing up examples of things I'd supposedly forgotten or gotten confused about. The time I allegedly left the stove on and she'd turned it off when she arrived. The appointment with my dentist I'd supposedly missed. The conversation about refinancing my house that I had no memory of having. Maybe you're right, I finally admitted to her during one particularly low moment. Maybe I should get evaluated. I'm scared, Veronica. What if something really is wrong with me? Veronica pulled me into a hug. Whatever happens, I'm here for you, Mom. We'll figure this out together. She helped me schedule an appointment with Dr. Raymond Chambers, a neurologist who specialized in geriatric cognitive assessments. The appointment was set for 2 weeks out, and in the meantime, Veronica suggested I keep a daily journal to track my memory and any confusing moments I experienced. I tried to keep the journal, but the act of writing in it every day just made me more anxious. I found myself scrutinizing every minor memory lapse, every moment of distraction, wondering if it was a sign of something worse. One evening, I couldn't remember if I'd taken my blood pressure medication and spent 20 minutes trying to figure it out. Another day, I walked into a room and forgot why I was there. Something that happens to everyone but now felt significant and frightening. Veronica was at my house almost every day now, which should have been comforting but instead made me feel watched. She'd quiz me about what I'd done that day, what I'd eaten, who I'd talked to. When I couldn't remember minor details, she'd make a note in her phone. Just keeping track for the doctor, she'd explain. It'll help with the evaluation. But something about it felt off, like I was being documented rather than helped. I mentioned this to Christopher during one of our Sunday phone calls. He worked in Seattle and we'd always been close, though less so since Paul died and the geographical distance felt more pronounced. Chris, I said after we'd covered the usual pleasantries, something strange is happening. I told him about the missing money, the bank's accusations, Veronica's concerns about my memory. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Mom, are you okay? Do you think there's something wrong with your memory? I don't know anymore. Veronica keeps pointing out things I don't remember, and now I'm second-guessing everything. What kind of things? I gave him examples. The lunch I supposedly forgot, the stove I allegedly left on, conversations I had no recollection of. That's weird, Chris said slowly. That doesn't sound like you. You've always had a sharp memory. But I'm 70 years old. Maybe it's just age. Mom, I've known you my whole life. You remembered every student's name, every exam date, every detail of our lives growing up. You balanced Dad's medication schedule during cancer treatment without missing a single dose. I don't think you suddenly developed memory problems out of nowhere. His words struck something deep inside me. He was right. Even in my grief after Paul died, even in my adjustment to retirement, I'd maintained my cognitive sharpness. I did the New York Times crossword every morning. I balanced my checkbook to the penny. I managed my investments and could explain the difference between various mutual funds to my friends. Chris, I said slowly, what if Veronica is lying about these things? Why would she lie? I don't know. But what if the memory problems she's describing aren't real? What if she's making them up? There was another long pause. Mom, that's a serious accusation. Veronica's your daughter. Why would she gaslight you about having memory problems? The word gaslight hung in the air between us. Was that what was happening? Was my own daughter manipulating me into doubting my own mind? I need you to do something for me, Chris said. Start writing down everything that happens, but don't tell Veronica about it. Keep a separate journal that she doesn't know about. Document your thoughts, what you remember, what she says you forgot. If something's wrong with your memory, the journal will show it. But if Veronica's manipulating you, that'll show up too. After we hung up, I found an old notebook in my desk drawer. One with a plain black cover that wouldn't draw attention. I started writing everything down. The date, the time, what happened, what Veronica claimed happened. The discrepancies became clear almost immediately. March 18th. Veronica said I forgot we had lunch plans last week. I checked my calendar and phone. No lunch plans were ever scheduled. March 19th. Veronica mentioned I left the stove on last Tuesday. I distinctly remember not cooking that day. I had leftover soup from the refrigerator. March 20th. Veronica said I'd agreed to let her review my investment portfolio for errors. I have no memory of this conversation and wouldn't have agreed to it anyway. I manage my own investments and always have. The pattern was undeniable. Veronica was lying about my memory problems, creating false incidents to make me doubt myself. But why? What did she gain from making me think I was losing my mind? The answer came to me in the middle of the night, startling me awake with its clarity. If I was declared mentally incompetent, someone would need to manage my finances. And who was better positioned to do that than my daughter, the financial advisor? The next morning, I called Northwest Bank and asked to speak with Patricia Holloway again. Miss Holloway, I said when she came on the line, I need you to tell me something. Those external accounts my money was transferred to. Can you give me any more information about them? I'm sorry, Mrs. Chen, but that information is confidential. Even if it would help me prove fraud? There was a pause. What exactly are you asking? I'm asking if one of those accounts belongs to my daughter, Veronica Chen. The silence that followed was answer enough. Miss Holloway, I said carefully, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to be honest with me even if you can't give me specific details. If I were to subpoena records from my daughter's bank accounts, would I find my missing money? Mrs. Chen, I can't confirm or deny anything without proper legal documentation. But I can tell you that if you believe a family member has stolen from you, you should file a police report immediately. My hands were shaking as I hung up the phone. My daughter had stolen my money. My own daughter had drained my accounts and then convinced me I was losing my mind to cover up her theft. The betrayal was so profound I felt physically ill. But I couldn't confront her yet. I needed proof, real proof that would stand up legally. Called Christopher back. You were right, I told him. I think Veronica stole my money and is trying to make me seem incompetent so she can control my finances. We need to get you a lawyer, Chris said immediately. A good one. I'll be there by tomorrow morning. Don't tell Veronica I'm coming. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal when Veronica came by that evening to help me prepare for the cognitive evaluation. She'd printed out information about what to expect, how the tests worked, what questions they might ask. If you're nervous, that's completely normal, she said as we sat at my kitchen table. Just answer honestly. The doctors are there to help, not to judge you. I wanted to scream at her, to demand she tell me the truth about where my money had gone. Instead, I nodded and thanked her for her support. When Christopher arrived the next morning, I watched from the window as his rental car pulled into the driveway. He looked tired from the early flight, his hair messy and his usual neat appearance slightly disheveled. Mom, he said, pulling me into a tight hug. We're going to fix this. He brought a lawyer with him. A woman named Diana Foster who specialized in elder law and financial exploitation. She set up her laptop at my dining room table and got straight to business. Mrs. Chen, I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. Don't leave out any details, even if they seem unimportant. I told her about the declined debit card, the empty accounts, the bank's investigation, Veronica's claims about my memory problems. I showed her my secret journal with all the inconsistencies I'd documented. Diana took notes, her expression growing more serious as I talked. This is a clear case of financial exploitation and potential guardianship fraud, she said when I finished. Your daughter has stolen your money and is now trying to establish that you're mentally incompetent so she can gain legal control over your remaining assets. Can we prove it? I asked. We can try. First, I'm going to request all your bank records, including the details of those external accounts the money was transferred to. Second, we're going to get you a legitimate cognitive evaluation from a doctor who has no connection to your daughter or the bank. Third, we're filing a police report for financial elder abuse. Diana looked at me seriously. Mrs. Chen, I need you to understand that this is going to get ugly. When we confront your daughter with evidence of theft, she's going to fight back. Are you prepared for that? She's already stolen from me and tried to convince me I'm losing my mind, I said. I don't know if it can get much uglier than that. Diana nodded. Then let's get started. Over the next week, the truth emerged in devastating detail. The external accounts my money had been transferred to were shell accounts Veronica had set up using variations of fake names. Sarah M. was Sarah Mitchell, an alias. Michael K. was Michael Kane, another alias. Jennifer L. was Jennifer Lopez, which seemed almost insulting in its obviousness. All three accounts funneled money into a master account that Veronica controlled. She'd stolen nearly $60,000 from my savings and another $8,000 from checking. The money had been used to pay off her credit card debts, cover the lease on her BMW, and make the down payment on a condo in the Pearl District that she couldn't actually afford. My daughter wasn't a successful financial advisor. She was drowning in debt and had decided to solve her problems by robbing her own mother. The cognitive evaluation Diana arranged confirmed what I already knew. Dr. Sarah Hernandez, a neuropsychologist with 30 years of experience, conducted extensive testing over 2 days. Mrs. Chen, she said as she reviewed the results, your cognitive function is completely normal for your age. You show no signs of dementia, memory impairment, or any condition that would prevent you from managing your own affairs. In fact, your executive function and financial reasoning scores are above average. The relief I felt was overwhelming. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't losing my mind. But the relief was quickly replaced by rage. Veronica had tried to steal my money and my sanity. The police report led to a detective being assigned to my case. His name was Martin Rodriguez, and he'd seen cases like mine before. Elder financial abuse is more common than people realize, he told me during our first meeting. Often it's family members who are the perpetrators because they have access and trust. We're going to build a case against your daughter, but I need to warn you that these cases can be hard to prosecute. Family members often claim the money was a gift or a loan. With all due respect, detective, I have documentation showing my daughter created fake accounts and transferred my money without my knowledge or consent. That's not a gift. That's theft. He nodded. You're right. And we're going to prove it. But you need to prepare yourself for what comes next. The confrontation happened at the bank. Diana had arranged for a meeting with Patricia Holloway and the bank's legal team to review the evidence and demand my accounts be unfrozen. We'd informed them that Veronica would be there as well, though we hadn't told her why. When Veronica arrived at the bank conference room, she was dressed in one of her expensive suits, her hair perfectly styled, playing the role of concerned daughter. She smiled when she saw me, then her expression faltered when she noticed Christopher, Diana, and Detective Rodriguez. Mom, what's going on? She asked. Who are all these people? Veronica Chen, Detective Rodriguez said, standing up. I'm with the Portland Police Department. We need to ask you some questions about unauthorized transfers from your mother's bank accounts. Veronica's face went pale. I don't understand. What transfers? Diana opened her laptop and turned it to face Veronica. We have documentation showing you created 3 fraudulent accounts and transferred nearly $70,000 from your mother's accounts over a period of 2 weeks. We also have evidence that you attempted to have her declared mentally incompetent to cover up your theft. This is ridiculous, Veronica said, but her voice shook. Mom, tell them this is a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was, is me ever believing you cared about me more than you cared about my money. Veronica's expression shifted from shock to anger. You don't know what you're saying. You're confused, remember? The doctor's appointment is next week. We're going to get you help. I've already been evaluated, I said. Dr. Hernandez confirmed I have no cognitive impairment whatsoever. Everything you said about my memory problems was a lie. For a moment, I saw something ugly flash across Veronica's face, something I'd never seen before. Then she tried to recover, forcing a sad smile. Mom, I was trying to help you. You were making these transfers and not remembering them. I was trying to protect you from yourself. The The bank records tell a different story, Diana said. The money was transferred to accounts you control, Veronica. You then used that money to pay personal debts and expenses. That's not protection. That's theft. Veronica stood up abruptly, grabbing her purse. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do, Detective Rodriguez said. Veronica Chen, you're under arrest for financial exploitation of an elder, fraud, and identity theft. As he read her rights and handcuffed her, Veronica looked at me with an expression of pure hatred. You're going to regret this, she hissed. I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you. And then you stole from me and tried to convince me I was losing my mind. I'd say we're even, except we're not. You committed crimes and now you'll face the consequences. After they let her out, I sat in the conference room feeling numb. Christopher put his arm around my shoulders. You did the right thing, Mom. I know. But it doesn't feel good. Patricia Holloway apologized on behalf of the bank for not catching the fraud sooner, and for suggesting I was incompetent. We're unfreezing your accounts immediately, she said. And we'll be refunding the investigation fee. The bank takes full responsibility for our failure to properly investigate before jumping to conclusions about your mental state. The money Veronica had stolen was harder to recover. Some of it had been spent, but Diana was able to freeze Veronica's accounts and begin the process of restitution. It would take months, maybe years, to get everything back. But at least I had access to my pension again, to my remaining savings, to my own life. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. In the meantime, Veronica made bail and immediately began a campaign to discredit me. She contacted my neighbors, my friends, even my former colleagues at the school, telling them I was suffering from paranoid delusions and had falsely accused her of theft. Some people believed her. Mrs. Patterson avoided me at the neighborhood association meeting. 2 of my former teaching friends stopped returning my calls. But more people believed me, especially after the local news picked up the story. Teacher's daughter arrested for elder abuse, the headline read. The article detailed Veronica's scheme and included quotes from Diana about the rising problem of family financial exploitation. Christopher stayed with me through the preliminary hearing. The prosecutor laid out the evidence methodically. Bank records, the fake accounts, emails where Veronica had researched how to get someone declared incompetent. There was even a text message thread between Veronica and someone named Brad where she'd written, "Once I get her declared incompetent, I'll have full control. Should have the money within 3 months." The judge set bail at $50,000 and issued a restraining order preventing Veronica from contacting me. As we left the courthouse, reporters tried to ask me questions. I had no comment except one statement Diana had helped me prepare. No one should have to fight their own children for the right to control their own life. Elder abuse is a crime, and families need to hold each other accountable. The trial was scheduled for 4 months later. In the meantime, I focused on rebuilding my life. I changed all my passwords again, set up 2-factor authentication on everything, and opened new accounts at a different bank. I started attending a support group for victims of elder financial abuse. Hearing other people's stories made me realize how common this was, how many families hid this kind of exploitation behind closed doors. One woman's son had stolen over $200,000. Another man's daughter had forged a power of attorney and sold his house without his knowledge. We were a group of survivors, learning to trust again after our own families had betrayed us. Christopher visited every few weeks, taking time off from his job in Seattle to make sure I was okay. We'd always been close, but this crisis had strengthened our bond. "I'm sorry I wasn't more present after Dad died," he said during one visit. "If I'd been around more, maybe Veronica wouldn't have been able to do this." "This isn't your fault, Chris. Veronica made her choices. She's an adult who decided to steal from her own mother. You can't blame yourself for that." The trial lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence of Veronica's theft and her systematic campaign to have me declared incompetent. They brought in Dr. Hernandez to testify about my cognitive evaluation. They showed the fake accounts, the bank transfers, the emails and text messages where Veronica had discussed her plan. Veronica's defense attorney tried to argue that she'd been acting in my best interest, that she genuinely believed I was declining and needed help. But the evidence was too clear. The fake accounts, the lies about my memory, the research into guardianship fraud. It was premeditated exploitation, not misguided concern. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they came back with a guilty verdict on all counts, I felt no joy, only a deep sadness for the daughter I thought I knew, the girl I'd raised who'd somehow become a person capable of such cruelty. The sentencing hearing was a month later. The prosecutor asked for the maximum sentence, citing the breach of family trust and the calculated nature of the crime. Veronica's attorney pleaded for leniency, arguing she had no prior criminal record. The judge looked at me before delivering the sentence. "Mrs. Chen, would you like to make a statement?" I stood up, my prepared remarks folded in my hand. But when I opened my mouth, different words came out. "Your Honor, Veronica is my daughter, and there's a part of me that will always love the child she was. But the woman she became tried to rob me of more than just money. She tried to rob me of my dignity, my autonomy, my sense of self. She tried to convince me I was losing my mind, and when that didn't work fast enough, she tried to have me legally declared incompetent. I am 70 years old, but I am not helpless. I am not confused. And I am not willing to let anyone, not even my own child, take away my right to live independently and make my own decisions. I hope that Veronica will use her time in prison to reflect on what she's done and become a better person. But I also hope that this case sends a message that elder abuse will not be tolerated, even when it comes from family." The judge sentenced Veronica to 6 years in prison followed by 5 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay full restitution of the $70,000 she'd stolen, plus interest and legal fees. As the bailiff led her away, Veronica looked back at me one last time. Her expression wasn't remorse or anger. It was something closer to disbelief, as if she couldn't comprehend how her plan had fallen apart. After the sentencing, reporters again tried to get comments. Diana handled most of them, but I agreed to one interview with a local journalist who'd been covering elder abuse issues for years. "What do you want people to know about what happened to you?" she asked. "I want people to know that getting older doesn't mean giving up control of your life," I said. "I want families to talk about finances openly so there are no surprises. And I want anyone who suspects a loved one is being financially exploited to speak up, even if it means confronting family members. Silence protects abusers. Truth protects victims." The interview aired that evening and was picked up by several national news outlets. My phone rang for days with people sharing their own stories, asking for advice, thanking me for speaking out. It was overwhelming but also validating. By refusing to be silenced, I was helping others find their voice. 6 months after the trial, I was doing better than I'd been in years. My accounts were fully restored, though I'd never get back the time and peace of mind Veronica had stolen. I'd started teaching a financial literacy class at the senior center, helping other elderly people protect themselves from fraud and exploitation. Christopher visited more regularly now, and we'd grown even closer through this ordeal. He helped me set up stronger financial safeguards and introduced me to a reputable estate planning attorney, who ensured my assets would be protected going forward. I also started dating someone which surprised me as much as anyone. His name was Robert, a retired engineer who I'd met at the support group for elder abuse victims. His situation had been different from mine. His nephew had stolen from him, but we understood each other's pain and anger in a way others couldn't. We took things slow, enjoying coffee dates and walks in the park, rebuilding our ability to trust. One evening, Christopher asked me the question I'd been asking myself since the trial ended. "Mom, do you think you'll ever forgive Veronica?" I thought about it for a long time before answering. "I don't know. Maybe someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what she did, or letting her back into my life. I can forgive her for my own peace of mind while still maintaining boundaries to protect myself." Chris nodded. "That makes sense. You don't owe her anything, Mom. Not after what she put you through." I received a letter from Veronica a few months later. It came through her attorney since the restraining order prevented direct contact. The letter was full of justifications and excuses. She'd been under financial stress. She thought she was helping me. She never meant for things to go so far. There was no real apology, no genuine remorse, just explanations for why her actions had been reasonable from her perspective. I read the letter once, then put it in a folder with all the other legal documents from the case. I didn't respond. What was there to say? Actions had consequences, and Veronica was living with hers just as I was living with mine. The difference was that I'd chosen my path by standing up for myself. She'd chosen hers through betrayal and greed. Today, as I sit in my living room looking at family photos that no longer include Veronica, I think about everything I've learned. I learned that age doesn't diminish your right to autonomy and respect. I learned that family bonds don't excuse criminal behavior. I learned that speaking truth, even painful truth, is better than maintaining comfortable lies. Most importantly, I learned that I was stronger than I thought. When my daughter tried to convince me I was losing my mind, I found the clarity to trust my own judgment. When she tried to steal my independence, I fought back. When the systems that were supposed to protect me initially failed, I found allies who believed in me and helped me prove the truth. I'm 70 years old, and in many ways I'm just beginning to live authentically. The fear I carried for months, that terrible doubt about my own mind, is gone. In its place is a confidence I never had before, the confidence that comes from surviving betrayal and emerging whole on the other side. The bank never freezing my account again. I have multiple safeguards in place now, checks and balances that prevent anyone from accessing my money without proper authorization. Christopher is my designated financial power of attorney, activated only if I become truly incapacitated, and that designation requires certification from 2 independent physicians. I also have a living trust, a will that explicitly disinherits Veronica, and regular meetings with my estate attorney to ensure everything remains current and protected. Sometimes people ask me if I regret turning in my own daughter. The answer is always no. What I regret is that she put me in a position where I had to choose between my own well-being and protecting her from the consequences of her crimes. But given that choice, I would make the same decision every time. No one has the right to steal your money, your dignity, or your mind, no matter how closely related they are. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up to family and say, "What you're doing is wrong, and I won't be silent about it anymore." I share my story now whenever I'm asked because I know there are others out there going through something similar, doubting themselves, wondering if they're really as confused as their family members claim, afraid to speak up because it might tear their family apart. To those people, I want to say, trust yourself. Document everything. Seek independent verification of your competency. Find allies who will believe you and help you prove the truth. You are not alone, and you are not helpless, no matter what anyone tells you. The money Veronica stole has been mostly recovered through restitution payments. It comes in small amounts each month, garnished from whatever income she'll earn after her release. It will take years to repay fully. But honestly, the money matters less now than it once did. What matters is that I got my life back, my independence, my sense of self. What matters is that I'm 70 years old and still making my own decisions, still living in my own home, still sharp and capable and free. My daughter tried to take that away from me and she failed. That victory is worth more than any amount of money in any bank account. As I look toward the future, I see possibility instead of fear. I see freedom instead of control. I see a life that's truly mine, not subject to anyone else's manipulation or greed. And that, more than anything, is what I fought for. Not just money or justice, but the fundamental right to live my own life on my own terms for as long as I'm able. No one can take that away from me now. Not my daughter, not any institution, not anyone. I claimed my power and I'm never giving it up again. The months following Veronica's sentencing brought unexpected challenges I hadn't anticipated. While I'd won the legal battle and secured justice, the emotional aftermath was more complicated than any court proceeding. I woke up most mornings with a heaviness in my chest, the kind that comes from grieving someone who is still alive. Because that's what this was, grief. Not for Veronica as she existed now, but for the daughter I thought I had, the relationship I believed we'd shared. My therapist, Dr. Linda Morrison, explained that this was completely normal. "You're mourning the loss of an illusion," she said during one of our weekly sessions. "For years you believed your daughter was one person, motivated by love and concern. Now you know she was someone else entirely, motivated by greed and self-interest. That's a profound loss, Margaret. It's okay to grieve it." The therapy helped, but so did the routine I established. Every morning I woke at 6:30, made coffee in the French press Paul had bought me years ago, and sat on my back porch watching the sunrise. Portland mornings in late summer were beautiful, the air cool and crisp before the heat of the day set in. I'd bring my journal, the public one now since I no longer needed to hide my thoughts. and write about whatever came to mind. Some mornings I wrote about Veronica, trying to understand where I'd gone wrong as a parent. Had I been too lenient? Too strict? Had I somehow communicated that money mattered more than character? Other mornings I wrote about Paul, wishing he was still here to help me make sense of what our daughter had become. He'd always been better at seeing people clearly, at not being blinded by hope or love. But most mornings I wrote about the future. About the financial literacy classes I was teaching at the senior center. About Robert, the retired engineer who made me laugh and never once treated me like I was fragile or diminished. About Christopher and his upcoming visit. About the grandchildren I hoped he'd give me someday. The senior center classes became unexpectedly fulfilling. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, I taught a group of 15 to 20 seniors about protecting their finances, recognizing scams, and setting up safeguards against exploitation. Many of them came because they'd heard my story on the news. Others came because they'd experienced their own brushes with financial abuse and wanted to learn how to protect themselves. "I'm embarrassed to admit I don't really understand online banking," said Eleanor, a 78-year-old former librarian during our third class. "My grandson keeps telling me I need to check my accounts regularly, but I don't even know how to log in." "There's no shame in not knowing," I told her, pulling up the bank website on the projector screen. "Let's go through it step by step." We spent that entire session on digital literacy, covering everything from creating strong passwords to identifying phishing emails. I showed them real examples of scam messages I'd received, pointing out the telltale signs of fraud. "See how this email says it's from my bank, but the sender address is actually a random string of letters and numbers? That's your first clue it's not legitimate." One man, Harold, raised his hand. "But what if I can't tell the difference? What if I accidentally give my information to the wrong person?" "That's why we set up verification steps," I explained. "Never give financial information to anyone who contacts you first. If you get an email or call from your bank, hang up and call them back using the number on your debit card. That way you know you're talking to the real institution." I watched their faces as understanding dawned, saw the relief that came from knowledge. Replacing fear. This was what teaching had always been about for me. Not just conveying information but empowering people to take control of their own lives. The same thing I'd done in my math classes for 43 years, showing students that numbers weren't mysterious or threatening, but tools they could master and use. After each class, people would linger to ask personal questions or share their own stories. A woman named Patricia told me her son had stolen her credit card information and racked up $12,000 in charges. A man named George described how his daughter had convinced him to add her name to his house deed, then tried to force him into a nursing home so she could sell the property. These aren't just statistics, I realized. Every news article about elder financial abuse represented a real person, a real family, a real betrayal. And most of them never reported it because they were too ashamed or too afraid of tearing their families apart. I did something during one class that surprised even myself. I brought in copies of newspaper articles about my case and handed them out. "This is what happened to me," I said. "My own daughter stole $70,000 and tried to have me declared mentally incompetent to cover it up. I'm not sharing this to embarrass myself or her, but because I want you to know that it can happen to anyone. Education, intelligence, teaching math for 4 decades, none of that protected me. What protected me was documentation, verification, and the courage to speak up, even when it meant destroying my relationship with my daughter." The room was silent as they read. Then Eleanor spoke up, her voice shaking. "My nephew has been asking me to make him a joint owner on my checking account. He says it's just for emergencies in case something happens to me. But now I'm wondering if that's really why he wants it." "Let's talk about joint accounts," I said, moving to the whiteboard. "When should you have them, when shouldn't you, and what are the alternatives that give someone access in emergencies without giving them complete control?" That conversation led to an hour-long discussion about powers of attorney, living trusts, and payable on death designations. I watched these seniors take notes, ask questions, challenge assumptions. They weren't helpless victims. They were informed consumers taking charge of their financial security. Robert started attending my classes, not because he needed the information but because he wanted to support what I was doing. Afterward, we'd go to a small Italian restaurant near the center and debrief over pasta and wine. "You're really good at this," he said during one of these dinners, Have you ever thought about expanding the program? Teaching at other senior centers? I twirled linguine around my fork, considering. I've thought about it, but I'm not sure I have the energy to manage multiple locations. I'm 70, Robert. I need to be realistic about my limitations. He smiled, that gentle expression that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. Margaret, you're one of the least limited people I know. You just took down your own daughter in court, recovered stolen money, and built a successful education program from scratch. If you want to expand, you'll find the energy. His confidence in me was both flattering and slightly overwhelming. After decades of marriage to Paul, who I'd loved deeply but who had never been particularly demonstrative with praise, Robert's straightforward admiration felt foreign. I'm still getting used to compliments, I admitted. Paul was wonderful, but he wasn't much for verbal affirmation. Well, I am, Robert said. And you're going to hear a lot more of them, so you better start getting comfortable. We'd been seeing each other for nearly 3 months, taking things slowly and deliberately. Neither of us was interested in rushing into anything. We'd both been married for decades, both lost spouses, both been betrayed by family members we trusted. That shared experience created a foundation of understanding that made our developing relationship feel safe. One evening, as we sat on his back deck watching the sunset, Robert asked me something I'd been avoiding thinking about. Have you heard from Veronica at all? Beyond that one letter? I shook my head. Nothing directly. Though Christopher mentioned she's been writing to him from prison, trying to get him to visit her. Has he gone? No. He told her he needed time to process everything she did, and that he wasn't ready to see her. Honestly, I don't know if he ever will be. Veronica didn't just betray me. She betrayed the whole family dynamic, destroyed the trust between siblings. Robert was quiet for a moment, watching the sky turn from orange to purple. Do you think about visiting her? The question caught me off guard. Visit Veronica? In prison? Sometimes I think about it, I admitted. Not because I want to reconcile, but because I want to understand. I want to look her in the eye and ask her how she could do this to me. What she thought would happen. Whether she feels any genuine remorse or if that letter was just more manipulation. And why haven't you? Because I'm afraid the answer will be worse than not knowing. What if I visit her and realize she still doesn't see what she did wrong? What if she's learned nothing and is only sorry she got caught? At least right now I can hold on to the possibility that she's reflected and changed. If I visit and discover she hasn't, that hope dies completely. Robert reached over and took my hand. That's fair. You get to protect yourself, Margaret. You don't owe her anything, including the opportunity to hurt you again. Christopher visited the following weekend, arriving Friday evening with a suitcase and a bag of bagels from his favorite Seattle shop. I figured Portland bagels wouldn't meet your standards, I teased as he set them on my kitchen counter. He grinned. You figured right. Seattle does some things better. We fell into the easy rhythm we developed over recent months. Friday evening was for catching up, Saturday for projects around the house, Sunday for leisurely brunch and deeper conversations. It was during Sunday brunch, over scrambled eggs and those Seattle bagels, that Christopher brought up something I hadn't expected. Mom, I've been thinking about moving back to Portland. I looked up from my coffee. Really? Why? A lot of reasons. Work has gone fully remote so I can do my job from anywhere. I want to be closer to you, especially after everything that happened with Veronica. And honestly, I miss home. Seattle's great, but it never felt like where I belonged. The idea of having Christopher nearby filled me with warmth, but also concern. I don't want you to uproot your life because of what Veronica did. I'm fine, Chris. I'm doing well, actually. I know you are, he said. But that doesn't mean you should have to do it alone. And selfishly, I want to be here. I want to be part of your life on a daily basis, not just phone calls and visits every few weeks. I want to take you to dinner on random Tuesdays. I want to help you expand those financial literacy classes you're so passionate about. I want to be the son I should have been all along. Oh, Chris. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. You've always been a wonderful son. You're here, aren't you? You believed me when I needed someone to believe me. That's more than enough. Maybe, but I want to do more. He pulled out his phone and showed me listings for apartments and houses in Portland. I've been looking at places in the Hawthorne area, close to you but not too close. What do you think? I think you should do what makes you happy, I said. But I won't lie, having you nearby would make me very happy too. He moved 6 weeks later, taking a small house just 12 blocks from mine. It was a 1920s bungalow with original hardwood floors and a fireplace that reminded him of growing up in our house. The first thing he did after moving in was invite me over for dinner, which he cooked himself with varying degrees of success. "This chicken is a little dry," he admitted as we ate. "I'm still learning." "It's perfect," I said, meaning it. Not the chicken itself, which was indeed dry, but the moment. My son, choosing to be near me, building a life that included regular connection. After everything with Veronica, having Christopher close felt like a gift I didn't deserve but was grateful to receive. We established new traditions. Tuesday night dinners at my house. Thursday morning coffee at a cafe halfway between our homes. Sunday afternoons helping each other with house projects or errands. He met Robert and they got along immediately, bonding over a shared love of hiking and terrible puns. "This is good, Mom," Christopher said one evening as the three of us finished dinner at my house. "You deserve this, the peace and the happiness in people who actually care about you." "I do, don't I?" I said, surprised by how easily I could claim that truth. 4 months after Veronica's arrest, I'd struggled with guilt and self-doubt. Had I been a bad mother? Had I somehow caused her to become someone capable of such calculated cruelty? Therapy helped me understand that while I wasn't a perfect parent, no one is. Veronica's choices were her own. She was an adult who made conscious decisions to steal from me and gaslight me. That wasn't a failure of my parenting. It was a failure of her character. The financial literacy program continued to grow. Word spread through Portland's senior community, and soon I was getting requests to teach at other centers, retirement communities, even a few churches. I partnered with a local nonprofit focused on elder advocacy, and they provided materials and helped coordinate the expanded schedule. By autumn, I was teaching 6 classes a week across 4 different locations. It was exhausting but energizing. Every class brought new stories, new questions, new people taking control of their financial security. One afternoon, a woman approached me after class with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said simply. "My daughter has been pressuring me to sign over my house to her for tax purposes." I didn't understand what that meant, but your class helped me realize I should talk to a lawyer before signing anything. I consulted an estate attorney, and he told me what my daughter was asking me to do would leave me homeless if she decided to sell. "You probably saved my home." Stories like that made every minute worthwhile. I wasn't just teaching financial literacy. I was teaching people to trust themselves, to verify instead of assuming, to speak up when something felt wrong. The same lessons I'd learned through my ordeal with Veronica. Robert and I grew closer as autumn progressed. He'd been married for 41 years before his wife Susan died of breast cancer. He understood grief in a way that created space for both of us to honor our past marriages while building something new. We talked about Susan and Paul frequently, sharing memories without guilt or awkwardness. "They'd want us to be happy," Robert said one evening as we walked through Laurelhurst Park. "They'd want us to keep living." "I think you're right," I agreed. Paul used to say life was too short for unnecessary misery. He'd be glad I found someone who makes me laugh. What did Susan say about life? Robert smiled, that soft expression of remembered love. She said every day was a gift, even the hard ones. Especially the hard ones, because those were the days that taught you what you were capable of. Sounds like she was a wise woman. She was. You would have liked each other, I think. By November, Robert and I had fallen into a comfortable rhythm of spending most evenings together, either at his house or mine. We cooked meals together, watched old movies, read books side by side in companionable silence. It wasn't the passionate romance of youth, but something deeper and steadier. A partnership built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Christopher noticed, of course. "You're glowing, Mom," he said one Thursday over coffee. "Robert's good for you." "He is," I admitted. I didn't think I'd ever feel this way again, like life still held possibilities and adventures. I thought after Paul died, and especially after everything with Veronica, that I'd just be going through the motions for whatever time I had left. But I'm not. I'm actually happy. Good. You deserve happiness. And for what it's worth, Robert's a good guy. I approve. Your approval means everything, I said with mock seriousness. I was waiting with bated breath. He laughed and threw a balled-up napkin at me. The holidays approached with complicated feelings. This would be the first Thanksgiving and Christmas without Veronica, the first time in 70 years I'd celebrate without my daughter present. Part of me ached at her absence, but a larger part felt relief. I don't think I could sit across a table from her and pretend everything was fine, I told Christopher when we discussed plans. I don't think I could watch her smile and make small talk knowing what she did, what she tried to do. You don't have to, he assured me. We'll make new traditions. Just us and Robert if you want him there. I'd like that. We hosted Thanksgiving at my house. Christopher cooked the turkey this time, having learned from his earlier dry chicken mistake. Robert brought sweet potato casserole and homemade dinner rolls. I made my mother's stuffing recipe and a pumpkin pie that didn't quite set properly but tasted fine anyway. It was small and imperfect and absolutely wonderful. As we sat around my dining table, Christopher raised his glass. To new traditions and the family we choose. To new traditions, Robert and I echoed, clinking glasses. Later, as we cleared dishes, Robert asked me something that had probably been on his mind for a while. Have you thought about what you want to do with Veronica's room? Her old bedroom? I looked toward the stairs, thinking about the room that still held traces of my daughter's teenage years. Some of her old furniture, posters she'd never taken down, boxes of memories I couldn't bring myself to sort through. I don't know. It feels wrong to erase her completely, but it also feels wrong to maintain it like a shrine to someone who tried to destroy me. What if you turned it into something else? Not erasing her, but transforming the space into something that serves you now? Like what? Like a proper office for all your financial literacy work. Right now you're teaching from folders and binders scattered across your dining table. What if you had a dedicated space to organize materials, prepare lessons, maybe even do video recordings to expand your reach online? The idea appealed to me immediately. Transforming Veronica's childhood room into a space dedicated to helping people protect themselves from the very thing she tried to do to me felt like poetic justice. Over the next few weeks, Christopher and Robert helped me convert the room. We packed up Veronica's remaining belongings and stored them in the basement. I couldn't throw them away entirely, not yet, but I didn't need to see them every day either. We painted the walls a soft gray, installed shelves for materials and books, set up a desk with my computer and a good lamp. Christopher even helped me set up a simple video recording setup so I could create online content. The first video I recorded was an introduction to the financial literacy series I was developing. My name is Margaret Chen, I said to the camera, feeling self-conscious but pushing through. I'm a retired math teacher and a survivor of elder financial abuse. My own daughter stole nearly $70,000 from me and tried to have me declared mentally incompetent to cover up her theft. I'm sharing my story and the lessons I learned because I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. Over the next several weeks, I'll be teaching you how to protect your finances, recognize warning signs of exploitation, and advocate for yourself when something feels wrong. The videos went online through the nonprofit's website and social media channels. I didn't expect much response, maybe a few dozen views from people already connected to the organization. Instead, the videos went viral within the senior community. Local news picked up the story again, this time focusing on my educational work, rather than just the crime itself. Within a month, I'd received hundreds of emails from people across the country thanking me for speaking out and asking for advice. Some were from seniors who'd experienced similar exploitation. Others were from adult children worried about their aging parents. A few were from financial advisors and elder law attorneys asking if they could share my videos with their clients. Margaret, you're becoming famous, Robert teased one evening as we read through emails together. Not famous, I corrected. Just visible. There's a difference. He kissed my forehead. Either way, I'm proud of you. One email stood out from the others. It was from a woman named Catherine in Ohio, whose mother had been financially exploited by her brother. She wrote about feeling isolated and ashamed, about family members who sided with her brother despite clear evidence of theft, about the difficulty of pursuing legal action against family. Your story gave me the courage to file a police report, she wrote. After 2 years of trying to handle this quietly within the family, I finally accepted that my brother wasn't going to stop unless forced to. Thank you for showing me that protecting my mother isn't the same as destroying my family. My brother destroyed the family when he decided to steal from a woman with dementia. I'm just holding him accountable. I replied to Catherine personally, sharing resources and offering encouragement. Her situation reminded me so much of my own, the guilt over involving authorities, the pressure to keep family matters private, the fear that speaking up made you the bad guy rather than the victim seeking justice. We exchanged several emails over the following weeks, and I found myself becoming a mentor of sorts, helping her navigate the legal system and emotional aftermath of familial financial abuse. This is meaningful work, I told Dr. Morrison during one of our therapy sessions. More meaningful than I expected. Teaching these classes and connecting with people who've been through similar experiences, it's giving me purpose beyond just surviving what Veronica did. That's beautiful, Margaret. You're transforming your pain into something that helps others. That's the definition of resilience. Winter settled over Portland with its characteristic gray skies and steady drizzle. I didn't mind the weather. There was something cozy about rainy evenings spent with Robert, both of us reading by the fireplace, or working on curriculum development in my new office while rain pattered against the windows. Christopher came over one evening in late December with news. Mom, I need to tell you something. Veronica's been writing to me again. She's asked me to visit her in prison. My stomach tightened. Are you going to? I don't know. Part of me thinks I should. That she's still my sister despite everything. But another part of me is angry that she thinks she deserves my time after what she did to you. What do you want to do? I asked. Not what you think you should do, but what do you actually want? He was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I want to ask her why. I want to understand how she could do this to you, to our family. I want to know if she's genuinely remorseful or if she's just sorry she got caught. Then maybe you should visit, I said carefully. Not for her sake, but for yours. If you need those answers to find peace, you have my blessing to seek them. Christopher looked relieved. You're not upset? I'm not thrilled, but I understand. She's your sister. Your relationship with her is separate from mine, and I don't want you to feel like you have to choose between us. Thank you, Mom. That means a lot. He visited Veronica the following week at the Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, where she was serving her sentence. I didn't ask for details immediately, giving him space to process the experience. When he finally talked about it 3 days later, his words were heavy with disappointment. She hasn't changed, Mom. She's still making excuses, still trying to justify what she did. She told me you were declining anyway, and she was just trying to help facilitate your care while securing her own future. She actually said those words, securing her own future, like stealing from your own mother is just good financial planning. What did you say? I asked. I told her she destroyed our family for money she didn't earn and didn't deserve. I told her that I couldn't have a relationship with someone who showed no genuine remorse for such calculated cruelty. And then I left. I hugged him tightly. I'm sorry, Chris. I know you hoped for something different. I did. I hoped prison would give her time to reflect and change. But I think the only thing she regrets is getting caught. That night, I wrote in my journal about complicated grief. Christopher's visit had confirmed what I'd suspected but didn't want to believe. Veronica wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry it hadn't worked. The daughter I'd raised, the person I thought I knew, either never existed or had been replaced by someone unrecognizable. Either way, that person was gone, and mourning her was appropriate even though she was still alive. Christmas came quietly. Christopher, Robert, and I exchanged small gifts and shared a simple meal. No one mentioned Veronica's absence, though it hung in the air like unseen snow. Afterward, as Robert and I sat by the fire, he asked me something unexpected. Have you thought about what comes next? For us, I mean. I looked at him, this kind man who'd come into my life at exactly the right moment. What do you mean? I mean, we've been together for 6 months now. We're both in our 70s. We've both been married before and know what we want in a partner. I'm not interested in playing games or taking things slow just because that's what people our age are supposed to do. So I'm asking directly, Margaret. What do you want this relationship to become? The directness was so characteristic of Robert that I had to smile. I want what we have now, but more of it. I want to stop splitting time between 2 houses and just be together. I want to wake up next to you and go to sleep next to you and build whatever time we have left as partners. Is that what you want too? It is. So what would you say if I asked you to marry me? I felt tears prick my eyes. Robert, we're 70 years old. People will think we're crazy. People already think we're crazy for being happy after loss and betrayal, he said. What's a little more crazy? Besides, I'm not asking what people will think. I'm asking what you think. I think yes, I said, laughing through tears. Yes, I'll marry you. We decided on a small ceremony in early spring, just Christopher, a few close friends, and the officiant. Nothing elaborate or expensive, just a simple affirmation of commitment between two people who'd found each other in the aftermath of loss. Planning the wedding gave me something joyful to focus on through the dark months of winter. Robert and I spent evenings discussing details, debating flowers versus no flowers, whether to write our own vows or use traditional ones. I vote for writing our own, Robert said. I want to say specific things about you in this relationship, not generic promises about sickness and health. I like that idea, I agreed, though I reserve the right to get emotional and potentially cry through the whole thing. I'll bring extra tissues. Christopher was thrilled when we told him, immediately offering to help with planning and to walk me down the aisle. I'd be honored, Mom. Dad would be happy you found someone who treats you so well. I think so too, I said. Paul always wanted me to be happy, even after he was gone. He told me before he died that he didn't want me to spend the rest of my life alone and grieving. The financial literacy program continued expanding through winter and into early spring. The nonprofit secured grant funding to pay me a small stipend for my work, which felt both validating and slightly surreal. At 70, I'd essentially started a second career helping people protect themselves from the very exploitation I'd survived. The videos gained more traction, and I started receiving interview requests from podcasts and news programs focused on elder care and financial security. One interview stood out. It was for a podcast called Protecting What Matters, hosted by an elder law attorney named Marcus Foster. He asked thoughtful questions about my experience and the lessons I'd learned. Mrs. Chen, what would you say to someone who suspects a family member is financially exploiting them but is afraid to speak up? I thought carefully before answering. I'd say that your fear is completely valid and understandable. Speaking up about family financial abuse means potentially destroying relationships and facing judgment from people who think you should handle these matters privately. But I'd also say this: silence protects abusers and isolates victims. The shame you feel belongs to the person stealing from you, not to you for reporting it. And finally, I'd remind them that they deserve dignity and autonomy regardless of their age. Getting older doesn't mean surrendering control of your life to anyone, even family members who claim to have your best interests at heart. The interview was downloaded thousands of times and led to more speaking requests than I could possibly accept. I'm going to need help managing all this, I told Christopher one evening as we reviewed the stack of invitations and requests. He grinned. Lucky for you, I have some free time and excellent organizational skills. Want to hire me as your manager? I laughed. I can't pay you. You're literally feeding me dinner twice a week and helped me buy my house. Think we're even. We worked out a system where Christopher screened requests and helped me prioritize which opportunities would have the most impact. I focused on speaking at senior centers and retirement communities, places where people most needed the information and were least likely to have access to other resources. Spring arrived with its characteristic Portland beauty, cherry blossoms and tulips transforming the city into something almost magical. My wedding to Robert was scheduled for April 15th, chosen specifically because it was the deadline for filing taxes. Seemed appropriate for a financial literacy educator, Robert joked. The ceremony took place in my backyard, which Christopher had helped me transform with string lights and simple flower arrangements. I wore a tea-length dress in dusty blue, nothing fancy but elegant enough for the occasion. Robert wore a suit and tie, and his eyes filled with tears when he saw me walk out of the house. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, speaking about second chances and choosing joy and building whatever time remained as partners and friends. I promised to support your work helping others, Robert said, his voice steady despite the emotion. I promise to laugh at your terrible math jokes, even when they're not actually funny. I promise to be honest even when it's hard, and to never take for granted the gift of finding you at this stage of life. I promise to choose you every day for as long as we have, I said, my own voice breaking. I promise to trust you even though trust has been broken before. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our past loves and our present joy. And I promise that if I ever seem confused or mentally incompetent, you'll get me properly evaluated before assuming I'm making financial decisions I don't remember. The gathered friends laughed at that last part, understanding the specific reference to my ordeal with Veronica. Afterward, we had a small reception with champagne and cake. Christopher gave a toast that made me cry. To my mom, he said, raising his glass, who taught me that strength isn't about never falling down, but about getting back up and helping others do the same. And to Robert, who was smart enough to recognize an amazing woman when he found her. As the sun set and our small group of friends celebrated, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete peace. Not absence of pain or loss, those would always be part of my story, but peace that came from surviving, fighting back, and building something beautiful from the wreckage. Married life with Robert was comfortable and easy. He moved into my house since it was larger, and we fell into rhythms that felt natural rather than forced. Morning coffee on the back porch. Evening walks through the neighborhood. Weekends working together on house projects or exploring Portland's parks and museums. The financial literacy work continued growing. By summer, I was teaching regularly at 8 different locations and had developed a comprehensive online course that people could take at their own pace. The nonprofit partnership expanded to include training for bank employees and financial advisors on recognizing and reporting suspected elder financial abuse. You're changing systems, not just educating individuals, Christopher pointed out during one of our Tuesday dinners. That's how you create lasting impact. I hope so, I said. Every time I teach a class or do an interview, I think about all the Veronicas out there, adult children looking at their aging parents as sources of money rather than people deserving of dignity. If I can help even a few people protect themselves, it's worth it. One afternoon in late summer, I received a call from an unexpected source. Mrs. Chen, this is Amanda Price from the Oregon Department of Justice. I'm with the Elder Abuse Prevention Unit. We've been following your educational work and wondered if you'd be interested in consulting on a statewide initiative. Consulting on what exactly? We're developing new protocols for financial institutions to identify and report suspected elder financial abuse. Your experience both as a victim and an educator would be invaluable in shaping these guidelines. We'd compensate you for your time, of course. The opportunity felt significant, a chance to influence policy rather than just help individuals. I accepted and spent the next several months working with state officials, bank representatives, and advocacy organizations to develop comprehensive guidelines. The work was technical and sometimes tedious, but knowing it could protect thousands of elderly Oregonians made every meeting worthwhile. Robert supported me through the long hours and occasional frustration. You're making a difference, he'd remind me when I was stressed about deadlines or disagreements over specific policy language. Real, lasting change is never easy, but it's always worthwhile. The guidelines were finalized in November and implemented across Oregon by January. Banks were now required to provide specific training on elder financial abuse, flag suspicious transactions involving seniors, and report suspected exploitation to authorities. It wasn't perfect, no policy ever is, but it was progress. Christopher continued managing my speaking requests and helping coordinate the expanded educational program. We'd settled into a wonderful routine of working together several afternoons a week, him handling logistics while I developed content. I never expected to go into business with my son at 71, I told Robert one evening. But it's been one of the best parts of these past 2 years. That's because you raised a good man, Robert said. Despite everything Veronica did, Christopher turned out kind and principled. You get to take credit for that. Winter came again, my second one since Veronica's sentencing. Sometimes I thought about her, wondered how she was managing in prison, whether she'd used the time for reflection or just resentment. Christopher reported that she'd stopped writing to him after his visit, apparently, realizing he wasn't going to provide the sympathy and support she wanted. I don't miss her exactly, I confessed to Dr. Morrison during a therapy session. But I miss the daughter I thought I had, the relationship I believed we shared. That's a different kind of grief. It is, Dr. Morrison agreed. And it's okay to hold both truths at once. You're glad you stood up to her and pursued justice, and you're sad about what you lost. Those feelings don't cancel each other out. They coexist. The financial literacy program celebrated its 2nd anniversary in March. We'd reached over 3,000 seniors directly through classes and workshops, and thousands more through online content. The nonprofit threw a small celebration, inviting some of the people who'd taken my classes to share their stories. One woman, Gloria, stood up and told the group how the class had helped her recognize that her grandson was stealing from her. She'd confronted him, gotten the money back, and set up proper safeguards to prevent future theft. Another man, Frank, described how he'd avoided a sophisticated phone scam because of red flags I'd taught him to recognize. Story after story, people shared how the education had empowered them to protect themselves. "This is your legacy, Margaret," the nonprofit director said as the celebration wound down. "Changing how seniors understand and protect their financial security." I felt tears in my eyes. I never wanted this to be my legacy. I wanted to be remembered as a good math teacher, a loving wife and mother, maybe someone who made a small positive difference in the world. But life doesn't always give us the legacies we plan for. Sometimes it gives us better ones, Robert added, putting his arm around me. "You're helping people avoid the pain you experienced. That's not just positive impact. That's transformative work." As spring progressed into summer, I found myself thinking about Veronica's eventual release from prison. She had 4 more years to serve, which meant she'd get out when I was 75, assuming she qualified for early release with good behavior. What would that be like? Would she try to contact me? Would she expect forgiveness and reconciliation? The questions sometimes kept me awake at night. I talked to Dr. Morrison about developing a plan for when Veronica was released. We discussed boundary setting, safety concerns, and how to maintain the life I'd built without letting her re-entry into the world disrupt my peace. "The restraining order will remain in effect even after her release," Dr. Morrison reminded me. "She can't contact you without violating it. That gives you control over if and when any communication happens." "That control feels important," I said. After months of her controlling everything, of feeling like my own mind and life weren't mine, I need to know that I'm the one deciding what happens next. Exactly. You get to set the terms of any potential future relationship, if you decide to have one at all. And if you decide you don't want any relationship, that's valid too. By summer, Robert and I had been married for over a year. We celebrated our anniversary with a weekend trip to the Oregon coast, staying in a small inn overlooking the ocean. On our last evening there, we walked along the beach at sunset, hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing. "I'm glad I found you," I told him as waves crashed nearby. "I'm glad I had the courage to trust again after everything with Veronica." "I'm glad you found me too," he said. "And I'm glad we both had the wisdom to know that past pain doesn't have to dictate future possibilities." The financial literacy work continued expanding in ways I never anticipated. A publisher reached out about turning my story and educational content into a book. A documentary filmmaker wanted to feature me in a film about elder financial abuse. Universities invited me to speak to social work and gerontology students. Each opportunity felt like taking something painful and transforming it into something meaningful. Christopher bought a house 3 blocks from mine that summer, joking that he was fully committed to the Portland return. He'd started dating someone seriously, a woman named Lisa who worked as a nurse practitioner. When he brought her to dinner for the first time, I saw the same look Paul used to have when he looked at me, a mixture of love and contentment and certainty. "This is serious," I said to Robert after they left. "Chris is going to marry that woman." "You think so?" "I know so. I've seen that expression before." It's how Paul looked at me before he proposed. Sure enough, Christopher announced their engagement 3 months later. They set a wedding date for the following spring, which meant I'd get to plan happier celebrations instead of just reliving trauma. Life was moving forward, I realized. Not forgetting the past or pretending it didn't happen, but building new experiences and relationships that honored survival while embracing possibility. That's what healing looked like. Not absence of scars, but refusal to let those scars define everything that came after. As autumn settled over Portland once again, I reflected on how much had changed in the 3 years since that terrible morning when my debit card was declined at the grocery store. I discovered betrayal, fought for justice, built a new career, found love, and helped thousands of people protect themselves from exploitation. The Margaret Chen who'd been told by a bank that she was probably mentally incompetent seemed like a different person now. Not because I'd fundamentally changed, but because I'd rediscovered the strength I'd always had but temporarily forgot in the face of gaslighting and manipulation. I was 71 years old, newly married, working in a field I'd never planned to enter, and genuinely happy. Veronica had tried to take my money, my home, my independence, and my mind. She'd failed at all of it. And in failing, she'd inadvertently pushed me toward a life more purposeful and fulfilling than the quiet retirement I'd planned. Sometimes, late at night when Robert was asleep beside me, I thought about what I'd say to Veronica if I ever saw her again. Not the angry condemnations or hurt accusations, but something simpler. Something like, "You tried to erase me, but I'm still here. You tried to steal my life, but I built a better one. You tried to convince me I was helpless and confused, but I proved I was capable and clear-minded. Thank you for failing, because in your failure I found my purpose." Whether I'd ever actually say those words to her, I didn't know. Maybe when she was released in 4 years, I'd find the courage to face her one last time. Or maybe I'd simply continue living well, knowing that was the best possible response to someone who tried to destroy me. Either way, I'd won. Not just in court with verdicts and sentences, but in the deeper way that mattered most. I'd reclaimed my life, my autonomy, and my sense of self. And no one, not even my own daughter, could ever take those things away from me again. 4 years passed in a blur of purpose and healing. Christopher married Lisa, and at 75, I became grandmother to twin girls. The financial literacy program expanded to 12 states, reaching 50,000 seniors. My book became required reading in social work programs. But the real victory was the peace I'd built. Then the letter arrived. Veronica was being released early for good behavior. My hands shook reading it. Robert reminded me I was in control now, not her. The restraining order protected me. I could choose whether to ever see her again. Weeks after her release, Veronica contacted Christopher, asking to meet. He went cautiously. She apologized, he reported. Not excuses, but genuine remorse. Prison had given her time to confront what she'd become. She was in therapy, working at a call center, volunteering at a financial literacy nonprofit. "Wait," I said. "Which nonprofit?" When he told me, I laughed bitterly. She was volunteering with my partner organization, teaching people to avoid the mistakes she'd made. The irony was almost poetic. Christopher asked if I'd meet her. After discussing it with Dr. Morrison, I agreed. In a coffee shop with Christopher present, I told Veronica exactly what she'd done to me. How she tried to steal not just my money, but my mind and dignity. She listened without defending herself, admitting the calculated cruelty of her actions. "I don't know if we'll ever have a relationship again," I told her. "But if you've truly changed, maybe someday we can find peace." She thanked me for listening and left quietly. Months later, Lisa gave birth to the twins. Life moved forward. Veronica maintained respectful distance, proving through consistent actions that she was trying to change. At 76, I'd survived betrayal and built something meaningful from the wreckage. I'd reclaimed my power. That was my true victory. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.